Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back. Randy Swaim joining us here today, our Marshall Goldsmith certified coach. Excited he's here to join us with his amazing background of all that he's doing to help so many people. And with executive coaching, again, he's working hard to help you learn to manage better, to work better. Therefore, more profitability, more leadership. It's going to get you out the door and better results all around for you personally and, of course, at work. So welcome back today. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to be with you again, Jill, and I hope you've had a good week and glad to be back.
Yeah, you know, the whole studying for the PhD. Oh, he's a pilot. Oh, there's a lot to you. How would you describe yourself in a few words?
Well, basically, I've learned a lot in my journey from a lot of circumstances, but also a lot of people that I worked with that were in many respects amazing people that just didn't tell you what to do, but I helped you experience some things and everything, and really that's my passion. When I look at people that I'm working with, it's not me telling them what to do. And that's why I love coaching. And of course, I apply the neuroscience aspect of it, being a certified master level neuroplastician of how the brain works and all of that. Excuse me.
No problem.
And, but I take that, and that's my passion, to make it so that people gain maybe insights from their situations and everything, from kind of what they can mentally process and all of that, and gain real insights into it that makes their life amazing going forward. And also the life of, if they're a leader, the life of their organization. And of course, as you know, so much of what I do is brought together in a concept of organizational maneuverability, the idea where, not everything that you have to work with or whatever is predictable, kind of thing. There's a lot of times there's factors that kind of come on scene that you didn't expect. And can you be successful in that? And so that's just in general of what I bring.
Great. Well, thank you for being here today. And where did you want to start for today's episode? What did you have in mind?
I'll tell you what I was going to think about, because I know last week we talked about the drifting aspect and all that kind of stuff. But at the very end, you asked a question, which was a good question and stuff. And I don't know if you remember the question.
I don't. I'm like, what did I ask? I forgot.
Okay. You were sort of talking about your boss, or not your boss, but a person's boss and everything. And what I thought I'd do today is expand the concept a little bit in that arena. Because remember, one of the things that I threw out is just, a question to ask them, about, what's the factors, what's going on and stuff when you're talking to the boss. But I'll kind of mention just a couple of things on that, because it is sort of aligned with what we're talking about.
Yes. And not my current boss if he's listening.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about any one person or anything like that. So yeah, if he's listening, this is not about
he's
you.
Like, what?
It's not about PBNN or anything like that. It's just a general insight that is aligned with kind of what we were talking about with the drifting and avoiding that. Remember that last week I mentioned this aspect that drifting is not something that you are initiating and doing. No, drifting is basically brought about by the external factors that maybe you were not aware of or whatever. And I gave an airplane picture of that. If the pilot's flying the airplane and the airplane goes off the heading that it's looking for, it's not the pilot that did it. Sometimes it's the crosswind that comes over and pushes the airplane to a side or whatever. And the pilot is not the one that initiated that, but they got to kind of fly it back. The pilot has to kind of move it back to where it can compensate for that and everything. And so the drifting is, sometimes it can happen in an organization or on a team, and particularly when you're talking about leading your team in somewhat of an unpredictable, you know, changing environment, or in the military, what we referred to as VUCA, variable, uncertain, changing, and adaptive, you know, kind of thing, and being able to be functional in that environment stuff. And like I said, what you asked at the very end of it, you had a thought about uh, the the boss for that is your boss and the team and all that. And I mentioned the concept of what questions you're going to ask them, um, to get them thinking and to get the conversation going and things of that nature and stuff. So, uh, but what I thought I'd do is kind of maybe just mention that aspect in when you're leading a team in a challenging environment like this, and just some things to think about on that, and just some of the aspects that are sort of aligned with it. So, so that's sort of what I thought I'd kind of focus on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, always a pleasure to have you here. And by the way, he's based out of the Dallas, Texas area, but clearly working with people, individuals, corporations, businessmen, and women all over the world. So let's begin.
I can work with people like that all over the place. So yeah, and I've got some colleagues that are in. And as you know, the Hollywood movie documentary "My Life and Story" is about to be released in about 6 weeks. It's December 14th, and some of my friends and colleagues in Germany are actually helping to market that even outside the United States. And so yeah, so it just making a difference. And anybody that needs some help, I welcome coaching them if they need a coach. And so, and coaching is not just about telling them what to do, but it's asking the right questions and helping their brain. And this is the neuroscience aspect of it, helping their brain process correctly so that they gain insight onto the situation that they're in, the reality of it, and what are the factors that need to play out, and what are the decisions you need to make in that situation. And that's what many people don't realize. It's not just a rote academic thing. It's understanding what is successful in this specific arena. And I'll share something with it, because you like I said last week, you sort of asked at the very end. You asked about if your boss saw that and kind of thing when you were kind of leading your team. And one of the things that I'll just sort of share with you is when you're talking about being a leader on a team, and this is a key difference between leadership and just dictatorial management. Because here's the thing: if your mindset is strictly on pointing fingers at them, telling them what to do, shut your brain off, shut off their brain, you just tell them what to do. Guess what? You're taking the success of your team and throwing it in the trash can. And oh, by the way, that aspect of the drifting can happen even more readily because their brains are shut off and they're not being involved with it. And so that is something you don't want to do. But when you're talking about that, if I'm a manager, in fact, I can probably share one aspect that I shared, I think about a year and a half ago, kind of thing on a show that you and I were on. I think it was one of the first ones. But when you're talking about that, when you're working with your team, there's a certain aspect that is aligned with organization maneuverability and success in a challenging, unpredictable situation and things of that nature. There's an aspect that a lot of time, just rote academic managers don't understand. Leaders do. And if you want to become a good leader, it's one aspect that you got to be aware of. And one of them is simply this. You got to realize that every person on your team is different. It's not that you're making every one of them exactly the same. No, not necessarily. Every person on the team is just a little bit different. And what that means is their background, their experience, their journey has been a little bit different in all that. But here's the insight on it. As a leader, you're sort of aware of the fact that it may be that when those unpredictable factors come on scene, that you have one or two people in your team that are not just going into a jail of rote academic things, but because of their experience, they're aware of a couple of things that the other people, including maybe the leader, is not totally aware of. And they may have a good picture that everybody can do well in and everything. And guess what? The leader may have that same picture, but you know what? If you see somebody on your team that's bringing it up, you know what? If you're kind of stepping in to try to take all the credit yourself, you're not getting the job done and you're not being a good leader. And in fact, I don't know whether you'll remember this or not, but this is one example. And this happened, probably 35, 37 years ago kind of thing. But it's back when I was the site manager and the detachment manager for our strategic air defense contractor role based at Griffiths Air Force Base in Rome, New York. And I was chosen as the site manager because the guy that was there as a site manager before me was not doing a real good job, and they kind of removed him.
Yeah.
And then they called me and asked me if I would be willing to take over. And I said, sure. But this one particular day, we had our entire team in our office space there, and we were discussing some aspects. I had thrown out a few questions and stuff, but we were discussing some things. But I wasn't saying a lot because I was listening to what the team was discussing and how they were kind of interacting with that. And what was amazing is I'm sitting there and I could tell they're going in the right direction. They're creating it, but they are going in the right direction. And what's amazing is one of the guys who I knew very well, we were both ex-Air Force guys in the F-4 Phantom. He had a tablet and a pen, and he was sitting down and he was going to write some notes on what they came up with. But halfway down on the seat, he noticed that he remembered that the boss is in the room, and he froze.
Ooh.
And he just looked at me like this. And what's amazing, you know what I did? All I did is I winked at him, I smiled, and I nodded my head like that. And that's all I did. And he smiled and sat down and wrote down all those notes because they were good points on that. And you got to realize that that when you're talking about leading a team in a challenging situation, if you're having them shut their brains off, guess what? The solutions may drift over to some place where you don't want them to go.
Yeah.
The success may drift over that way because of the external factors involved. But if you are basically having your people involved and they catch some reality on the situation, not to just go with just what you want done or whatever, kind of thing. Now, guess what? There might be some times where you got to do that, but that's kind of rare, kind of thing. But at times where you're just having your team just shut their brains off and not be a part of it, you're not getting the job done. And you're not growing your people. You're not getting them to be more and more and more successful in an unpredictable, challenging environment. And that's what we were sort of talking about. Because like I said, last week, I kind of answered you by saying that even if it's the boss, guess what? Ask them some questions, get their thinking, see what their thoughts are and all this. And same thing with this, that if you're a boss, when you go to talk to one of your team members, they may ask you some questions, and that's okay. If they're asking you a question or something, you may be able to kind of share with them what your thought is.
Yeah.
Or you might be able to say, well, what's your thought on that? I'll share you mine, but what's your thought on that? And get them to kind of share some wisdom on that and create some radically successful aspects and solutions. And so it's just when you're talking about a challenging environment like that, that's unpredictable and all that, how you do that is very critical, and it's focused on the coaching aspect of it, but it's also focused on how are you, when you talk about neuroscience, how are you getting their mental processing going? If you're shutting that down, you're basically throwing your team into the waste can for a bit. Uh, if all you're doing is just wanting to go tell them what to do so they'll do what you want them to do. Now, like I said, if really, restrictive, challenging situations like combat or something like that, okay, you may have to do that somewhat. But here's the thing. If you have interacted with your team better from a coaching perspective, where they get to develop their processing and they get to really experience that and live with that, guess what? If you ever have to do that, they know you're not just taking over and playing games. They know you're being a part of the team, and they are welcome to be a part of that team. And so those are just some aspects that when you're talking about a unpredictable, rapidly changing environment that is got some restrictions to it, or it's got some bad things that may be very negative in the outcome, kind of thing. You just got to be developing your people and not just making them do exactly what you want. Now, there might be some time if it's a life-threatening thing that, there might be. But here's the thing. If it's a situation like that, it may be that if they're directly involved with something right then, that they might be able to come up with the right solution. Who knows? But the bottom line is, it's just something to think about. If your entire focus is just on pointing fingers and dictating and saying, yeah, they just got to do what I tell them to do. Now, you know what? Yeah. But here's the case. If that's your focus, you're taking their brain and their ability and the development of their ability and insights and awareness, you're taking that and throwing it into the trash can. And that you don't want with your people. And so when you're talking about your people and really getting them going and stuff like this, and it organizational maneuverability concept, where not everything is rote academic, not everything is easy to guess, not everything's going to fit the rote, superficial academic answers that you think, kind of thing, because there may be other factors involved that you didn't see, and a couple of the people on your team did see. And how you can bring that solution together really involves more if you are a leader and if you are really acting as a coach, where it's really bringing out the expertise and the real potential success in your team. And it's just something to think about when you're talking about challenging situations like that. You got to be thinking about that. And like I said, sometimes when you're talking to your boss, it's not about just shutting up and all that. If you're a higher level leader, guess what? There are times when you want to hear what your people are saying. There are times where you want to have those conversations. And if you get that team atmosphere going very often, sometimes that can be a real benefit for the team and for you and what you're trying to accomplish. So it's just something to think about when you're talking about this aspect. Like I said, last week we were sort of talking about that a little bit, and you asked that question about the leader and stuff, and I said, you know what, we'll talk a little bit about that today. But the bottom line is, as a leader, if you see the person that is directly under you leading their team in a way that is very positive like that, you need to pat them on the back. You need to applaud them to a certain extent. And if they're just kind of shutting down their team and taking credit themselves or trying to, that may be what you don't want, and likely is not what you want. And so it's just something to think about when you're talking about this whole aspect of truly staying focused and being aware of what we were talking about last week, and and make sure we're doing it in a successful way. But not only are we doing it in a successful way, our people are actually growing, and as a leader, so am I. As my boss, so are you. Kind of thing, and so all of that is just one aspect that I share. Just kind of following up from your last question last week and everything. Because with sort of what we were talking about, that with the drifting aspect, you know what, that can happen, but you don't want to do that, because if it's drifting, it's probably getting off course from where you're really looking to go. And what do you need to do to make sure that doesn't really cause a problem for you? And that doesn't happen just because you point fingers at your people and yell at them and dictate to them what they got to do. But it's
all had
building.
Those.
That's right. But it's building within you and your boss and your team this truth and understanding, so that when it starts to happen, people can catch a real vision of what needs to happen, and they can make it happen, and give success out of it. So just something to think about. Just a little bit of a follow on from what we covered last week. I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. Wow. And we still got 5 more minutes here to talk about something else if you'd like.
Okay.
Randy. Oh, thank you. I inspired a show. Thank you.
Yeah. But I tell you, it's amazing, because these are aspects that a lot of people don't fully understand. A lot of people think it's just my job to come in and dictate and tell you what to do, and you just shut your brain off and do what I tell you to do. If that's your mindset, or if that's what you think you've got to do, you're not getting it done. And to what extent are you and your team, and perhaps even your boss, actually growing and becoming together? And that can happen when you're doing this in a positive way. And so it's just something to think about, relative to sort of following on a little bit from what we talked about last week. Because I will say, this aspect of drifting takes you away from where you want to be. And again, drifting is not something you are doing. Drifting is something that the situation, the aspect, the desire, the situation is doing. And if it's drifting, you are probably not controlling it. You're probably not handling it. And your team is probably not. And so if you interacted with your team in a way where they shut it off, that drifting can happen, and you don't want that. And so it's just something to think about when you're talking about this sort of aspect of it.
Wow. And I mean, you as a coach, with your background, with everything that you did, just I love one of your quotes, and I'm going to botch it, so I'm going to have you say it. When people always ask you, are you going to retire? What do you say about that last breath? People want what?
I'm going to say my retirement's going to happen right after I take my last breath. Yeah, because I'm going to be doing this until I take my last breath. That's I'm going to be making a difference right up until I take my last breath. Planning on retiring or anything like that, because I want to make a difference. Again, it's not calling attention to myself. No, not at all. It doesn't even bother me too much if people don't totally remember my name. But, if they remember there was this one insight that made a difference in their life, hey, that's well worth it. And that's what it's all about. So it's an experience and an awesome aspect with people that I work with, and all that. And I bring a lot of this to pilots too, and flight crews and stuff. So yeah, so yeah, definitely. Thank you for saying that. But yeah, that's my goal. When am I going to retire? Right after I take my last breath.
Beautiful. And by the way, before you do so, everyone, you got to go check out the book, Bring Freedom to Potential, a true story of overcoming and soaring above the storms of life. He does have a book. He also has a movie coming out, if you just want to touch upon that too.
Yep, that'll be good. And and the book's on Amazon, so you can go on there and purchase it. But you can, and the movie, like I say, December 14th is the day where it's going to be made available to the public. The AEMG folks are actually putting it on platforms, but it's going to be made available to the public December 14th. So it's less than 6 weeks away, basically, in thereabouts. So it's getting close.
Great.
And I'm very humbled by it. I will tell you this, that the director that recorded my story, and we chatted briefly after the movie was completely completed and everything. I had some just amazing and appreciative comments about my story and the difference it can make and what it shares. And so it's just a good thing for that. And I'm humbled by it. And I'm glad that here in about 5 to 6 weeks, it's going to be made available to the public.
Yay! It sure is. Cannot wait for that. And thank you so much, Randy, for always being here and always just giving back to so many people and with all your services. So coachingforrelevance.com. I know that's the website. Randy, I know you don't like to solicit anyone for business, but if you have something to ask, a question, feel free to reach out to him. And, if you connect, that's great. But go to the website and you'll learn a lot more about him, see a lot of great testimonials, and, of course, share, he shares some of the experiences and, of course, the testimonials too about working with him. Anything you want to say before we close, Randy? How did you want to leave off today?
No, I just will just say this, that it's all about how people want to have a really legendary picture in their journey for their families or for their friends or for their business or whatever. But I'll just simply say this, that Jill, it's always a pleasure being here with you. And I know we've been on shows together for about 2 years now, and it's always a pleasure being here. I appreciate you as a friend.
Thank you. Same here, Serdar. Thanks again for being here. Enjoy your day, and thanks for being our Professional of the Year. See you soon. Till next time.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes 2. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed, could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzzed driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzzed driving, because buzzed driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.